What's going on YouTube? So nowadays there are more crossovers on the market than ever before, but Forester continues to stand out from the bunch by doing things in its own unique way. This is the 2020 model, which is receiving a handful of changes this year despite just being fully redesigned. Of course, we do want to take a quick moment to specially thank our friends at Quantrell Subaru for giving us access to this Forester Sport. And of course, if you're in the market for any new Subaru, make sure you stop by their dealership or visit them via their website, which we provided a link to in the video description. So with that stuff said, let's hop into the review. So kicking things off with the exterior, you'll certainly notice quite a number of differences between this Sport and the Touring we reviewed last year. The main thing is going to be the fully blacked out grille and orange accents along the bottom, which is something you'll see repeated all around the vehicle. As for the other trims, they have a more traditional look with chrome surrounds. Now as far as the headlights, they are pretty much identical on every trim. The high and low beams themselves will always be fully LED, but they will also be steering responsive on Limited and Touring. Additionally, fog lights are included on the top three trims, as well as an excellent 8.7 inches of ground clearance on all the trims. Going around the rest of the vehicle, it continues the Forester tradition of being conservatively styled, but like the front, choosing the Sport is going to spice things up. Both the side and back continue with the orange accenting, and the Sport also has a large black piece across the back that is not present on any of the other trims. All the models will also come with boomerang-shaped, partially LED taillights, and the only 2020 change to mention is new LED license plate lighting. So overall, this newest generation of Forester continues to offer a classic Forester look, but with the Sport model, you can add a bit more excitement. Now as far as the wheels are concerned, Subaru has actually given every single trim its own design. On the top three trims, you have 18-inch alloys in 3 different designs. Then dropping down to the premium gets you 17-inch alloys, and the base model 17-inch steel wheels. Heading up to the mirrors, you'll find body coloring and heating on all but the base model, and auto dimming is available via Popular Package 3. Additionally, the Limited and Up also includes standard blind spot detection with rear cross traffic alert. And on the topic of safety, the Forester's excellent eyesight safety package has gotten even better for 2020, since it now adds lane centering abilities. That joins the already standard pre-collision braking, lane keeping assist, and adaptive cruise control. Plus high beam assist is included on this Sport and Up, and the Touring even adds rear auto braking. Taken together, this is certainly one of the most comprehensive safety packages available in the class. But anyways, that's it for the outside. So now let's get inside the cabin before taking it out on the road. So on the Sport version of the 2020 Forester and above, you will find Subaru's Smart Entry System, and it is also available as an option on the Premium model. Now of course, like most vehicles, to get inside, all you have to do is grab the handle since there's a sensor. Of course, taking a look inside the cabin of the 2020 Forester, you won't notice any changes this year to the design, since it was fully redesigned last year. Now talking about the different color and material options, you will have some type of cloth seating on your base through your Sport trim, and then leather on the Limited and Touring. And then as far as the colors, you'll be looking at black or gray cloth on that base and premium model. However, here on this Sport model, we have the special gray cloth seats with more of that orange stitching carries throughout the entire interior, and leatherette on the outside edges. As far as the Limited, it has black or gray leather, and the Touring black or an exclusive brown leather. Now turning over here to your door trim, it is very nicely appointed. I particularly like that there is leather material covering the armrest, even on the lower end models like this Sport. We do have this orange stitching. You also have a cloth material and a special Sport badge. And then a plastic material that kind of mimics carbon fiber. As far as your windows, they are one-touch automatic for the driver and the passenger. Now coming down here to your seat, Subaru does nicely include this 10-way power adjusting seat on all but the very base model. And then like I was saying, the Sport does have a special seating combination different from all the rest of the trims, which includes leatherette and cloth in the middle. Definitely think it's a very attractive look. So like I already mentioned, you're not going to notice any changes for 2020, but what you will notice versus the Touring we did last year is a lot of different orange accents. Those are special to the Sport. Now across your upper dash here, you do have a soft touch plastic. Then dropping down here to the middle, you have this genuine orange stitching that goes all through here, and then a really cool textured leatherette material through here. Subaru has nicely included a lot of leatherette material in this cabin, so it does actually descend all through here across the center console, so you can rest your knee against this. And then like I said, you're going to notice a lot of different orange pieces special for this Sport model. Now to start up the Sport and above, just put your foot on the brake and press the button. Now as far as your gauges here, these are your typical Subaru setup here. So analog on the right and left, and a 4.2-inch multi-function display in the middle. This is standard on all models, and it does have some of your basic information. However, like most recent Subarus, you'll see up here above the main display, you have a 6.3-inch display. This is on your Sport trim and up, and this basically includes the more interesting details. So you have things like your all-wheel drive system, different types of engine stuff, weather. So really it's a nice multi-function display. It's kind of cool to have two different ones. Now coming back to the steering wheel itself, it is electric power assisted, and it is leather wrapped on all but the very base model. And it does also manually tilt and telescope. Alright, now moving on to interior storage, the Forester does have what I consider to be a class competitive amount. So we'll start out under our center console here. As you can see, we do have a pretty large bin. There's also a nice removable tray right there, and a 12-volt outlet inside. Up in front of that, you have another little tray, which would be good for a phone, 2 adjustable cup holders, and then another nice and large bin right up here in the front, with 2 charging USB ports, an aux jack, and another 12-volt outlet. Now despite all of the storage, Subaru has stuck with a traditional shifter, so you just pull back for drive. You can bump over here to the left to shift manually through 7 simulated gear changes via these paddles only. I cannot remember if these are Sport exclusive or if they're on all the trims. I'll add a text box. And then when we go into reverse, you will find a standard backup camera. It does have a nice active trajectory, but there is not a 360-degree camera system on any of the models. And then back behind the shifter, you will find both an electronic parking brake and auto brake hold feature. Additionally, next to that, you're going to find some of your drive modes. As you can see, we have deep snow, mud, snow, and dirt, as well as normal modes. So this is all part of your X mode controller. Certainly one of the features that makes the Forester stand out is its increased off-road capability versus the competition. And then off to the side here, you're going to find your 2-stage heated seats. This is one of our 2020 changes because this is now included on the premium trim and up, where it was previously on the Sport and up, so that is new to the premium. And then moving on up to the rest of the climate controls, There are a couple different setups. Automatic climate control is standard on all the trims, but it won't be two-zone until you go for the limited or the touring. Alright, so now that brings us up here to our audio systems. There are several of them. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but on this specific model and most of the Subaru models, you do have a 6-speaker sound system as standard equipment, so we'll go ahead and take a sample of that. Overall, sound quality is not going to blow you away since this is more of a basic sound system. However, it is pretty decent. Alrighty, so now that's going to bring us up here to our StarLink system. Now, as you can tell right off the bat here, we do have a 6.5-inch display versus the 8-inch display that you see in some of the other trims. It's available as an option on this Sport, and it's standard on the Limited and the Touring. Now, as far as the actual software itself, though, it's really exactly the same. This is just a miniaturized version. You do also have standard Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which is definitely nice to have. And then navigation is going to come on your Limited and Touring trims. Anyways, that's all I'm going to talk about in this video. However, we do have a dedicated tech help video for those of you who want to learn more about the StarLink system. A link to that will be provided in the video description. Alright, now moving on up here, you will find an auto-dimming mirror with a compass and 3 HomeLink universal remotes. This is actually optional on every single Forester, so it is part of a, I believe it's called Popular package on this particular model. And then what is definitely one of the nicest features of the Forester is this wonderful looking panoramic moonroof. Subaru actually includes this standard on the premium and up, so almost every single model of the Forester is going to come with this pano moonroof. That's certainly something that makes the Forester stand out from the competition, which usually reserves pano moonroofs for the very highest end trims. Of course, as you can see, it opens up almost all the way back, so it's kind of like a Jeep-like experience, and I'm definitely very impressed by it. So overall, I continue to be very, very impressed by the cabin of the 2020 Forester. Subaru definitely made a lot of nice upgrades last year, and especially here in this Sport model, which is very reasonably priced, I definitely like the way that everything is designed and looks really cool. Now what you're noticing here is actually one of our other 2020 changes. That is a new standard rear seat reminder across all of the trim levels. Alright, so that's going to do it for the interior section. Now I'll hand it off to Mason, who will check out all the back areas.
Heading around to the Forester Sports rear door trim, you will be pleasantly surprised that the materials do follow through. You have this cloth portion on the top, leather red all the way through your armrest, color contrast stitching, and down below that you do have some bottle storage. Now here in the center, Subaru does give you a good amount of features even on the base models. So you do have these vents on all but the very base model. And down below that you will find these smart charging USB ports on the premium trims and higher. And in addition to that, you will also find heated rear seats exclusively on the touring trim. Now you do also have a fold down armrest, cup holders inside, of course an assist grip, your lighting, and the panoramic moonroof. And as far as the rear legroom behind rear seating position, I actually have a ton of space. So as you can see, I probably have 6 to 7 inches of rear legroom, and my feet have no trouble sliding up underneath the seat. And the technical measurement for the Forester is 39 inches of rear legroom and 40 inches of rear headroom, which does place it above most in the class. It's definitely on the larger side. It's even larger than the Subaru Outback. Now your rear seats do also recline, as well as fold 60-40 split, so just pull the tab, and they do fold right down. Now coming around to the tailgate, on this model it is just the regular tailgate, so you just push the button and lift up. However, it is going to be power on the limited trims and higher, and you can option it on to both the premium and the sport trim if you want the power option. Now looking inside though, you do have a really good sized trunk in here. You're going to find 35 cubic feet of space behind the second row seats, and that expands to 76 cubic feet if you fold all of the seats. Now that does place it on top of most of the competition. This is definitely one of the larger offerings, and it's even larger than Subaru's own Outback in this regard as well. Now as far as how they finish it back here, it is finished nicely. So you do have a 12-volt power outlet here, a cargo cover, and underneath of the floor here, you do even have additional storage. As you can see, there's tons of storage space up under here, probably 6 to 8 inches deep across the entire floorboard. Definitely fit a lot more stuff up under the floor. And it is worth noting that the seats would have a power release mechanism on the touring trim. And you will also notice one of the few changes for 2020, and that's these LED lights here in the cargo area that shine down from above, which give you a very good look at what you're doing at nighttime. Of course, your passenger seat on this model is manual adjusting. However, it is 8-way power on the touring trim. And in front of the passenger, you do have a good sized glove box. As you can see, it's pretty deep and goes back a good distance. You also have a sun visor. It's quite wide, has a light and mirror, and it does also detach and have an extension on the end. Well guys, that sums up all the practical stuff about the Forester Sports rear areas. So now let's go ahead and take it out on the road and see how it performs there.
So there's our first acceleration in the 2020 Forester, and power definitely feels very good for this category of vehicle. You know, a basic 4-cylinder engine is not ever going to knock your socks off, but you know, definitely seems to put the power down. Subaru also does pretty aggressive throttle response, so they make the most of the 182 horsepower that this 2.5 liter naturally aspirated boxer 4-cylinder does produce. You know, so there's definitely some offerings in this class that get off the line in a lot more sluggish of a way. Now, one thing I remember from our previous 2019 Forester review and continue to really notice here in this 2020 is the pretty agile feel that Subaru has given this Forester. Definitely a lot tighter on the suspension. You can definitely tell there's a lot more rigidity here, and that definitely translates to just feeling a lot more balanced. You can kind of go around corners a little bit here, And you notice a whole lot less body roll than the previous generation. Also, the steering surprisingly has a nice weight to it. As you can see, it responds immediately, so it's very linear. You know, these are things you don't really necessarily expect in this class. Certainly have been in competitors that do this a lot worse. So this is definitely on the good side in the class.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell even here from the passenger seat just how, you know, kind of confidence inspiring it is for you to drive. You know, most in this class you're kind of nervous to go around a corner fast because, you know, they don't do a very good job, but, you know, you kind of tossed it around and it seemed to stay planted, so. Now you may have been noticing upon that acceleration that it did not shift gears, and that's because all of the models are going to come with a Lineartronic CVT. You know, this is just the regular CVT transmission. It doesn't really do much in the way of simulating shifts, but I wouldn't say it's too noticeable, especially in this class of vehicle.
There are some drive modes that you can switch into. So this is our S Sharp. You can see it kind of immediately rev things up. That's going to make things sportier. We do also have manual simulations with paddles that we can try out here in a second and see how that is, but for the most people you're going to keep it in the normal mode, cruise around like we just did, and you'll notice a CVT that is very responsive. When you get on the throttle, like I was saying, the aggressive throttle response, the responsiveness of the CVT, it all pairs very nicely with the 4-cylinder. You know, that's a combination that can often really lead to sluggishness because you have so many different variables going on. Some of the competitors have turbo engines, so you have to spool those up. But I think Subaru has really implemented this well. It works together as a great combination. And, you know, as far as just everyday driving around the city, it really just kind of blends into the background, and I don't think that it will bother you at all. So Sport Sharp is not going to actually get you anywhere faster, but it does feel faster. So, you know, just initial takeoff around town and whatnot, you know, definitely is nice to have the availability to just kind of get off the line a little bit faster.
Yeah. And while, you know, it is good to have that sportiness to it, you know, obviously this is a Forester, and this type of vehicle, you know, the main mission is just to haul the family around in comfort, and the Forester is the king of that. It's pretty hard-pressed to find a car that's more practical than the Forester, so you're definitely going to have plenty of space for you and all of your family to come along, and in comfort.
Now our auto start-stop system has engaged on this Forester. This was the first model to implement, Subaru model to implement it in their lineup last year. Since then, the Outback has also got it. And like that Outback that we had sampled earlier in the year, it does have a little timer here that tells you how long your auto start-stop system has been activated, and then gives you an estimation of how many gallons of gas that you're saving. Subaru is the only brand I've seen do this, and that's kind of a nice way to, I don't know, show you that it's worth it, I guess, and show you what the point is. But anyways, once we take off here, we'll see how quickly it starts back up. Startup is reasonably fast and quick. There's a little bit of roughness to the when it starts back up a little. You can feel a little bit of a shake. Of course, this isn't a luxury vehicle, so I mean, it's nothing too bad. Of course, also Subaru gives you the ability to turn it off as well. So,
and it doesn't seem to be one that's like super active. The Ford's ones, like if you'll stop for like 3 seconds, it'll turn off. But this one, it normally will stay on for a little bit. See, like that, it didn't turn off.
Exactly.
So it is one of the better ones.
If you push down real hard on the brake pedal, you can make it activate. Yeah, but like he was saying, pretty easy to drive around not activating it, or you can just turn it off.
And the big benefit of that auto start-stop system is the fuel economy, and pretty much you're going to get it either way. This is definitely one of the most efficient offerings in the class, and if you go for all-wheel drive, it is the most efficient offering in the class. It comes in at 26 city, 33 highway, 29 combined, which that really is exceptional fuel economy for a crossover.
Yeah, because like you said, this is standard all-wheel drive. You know, so all Subarus have standard all-wheel drive. Yet you're getting fuel economy that is better than a lot of the competition's front-wheel drive offerings.
Yeah.
So Subaru's really worked their magic here with this combination. It definitely makes for a good fuel-efficient overall setup. But overall, I have to say the Forester is certainly a very pleasant SUV to drive. You know, a lot in this class of vehicle, I think it's very important that you have something that can just blend into your everyday life. And nothing about this Forester is going to go outside of that. You know, there's no thing that's going to penalize it. You know, some vehicles, they've got super vague steering in this class. Some vehicles have really loud engines. Some vehicles have bad fuel economy. None of that is the case here in this Forester. It really turns out to be a fantastic all-around combination, and it's certainly worth taking a look at if you're in this class of vehicle.
Alright, for the pricing for this 2020 Forester, you are going to look at a very competitive pricing point. So you have the 2.5i base, and that's going to start at $24,495. The premium is going to be $27,395, which is worth noting that's a $700 increase due to more equipment for 2020. And then the sport model is going to be $28,995. The limited is $31,095, and then finally you have the top-end touring trim, and that's $34,595. And it is worth noting on all but the premium trim, pretty much all the prices just rose $200 this year. Now, as far as how this model is equipped, we do have just a few options on top of that. So we have the popular package 2, which is $912, as well as the rear seat back protectors for $93. And then when you add in the destination charge of $1,010, this particular model, as equipped, comes in at $31,010, which is, you know, a very competitive price point, especially for this class of vehicle. A lot of them fully loaded can get into the 40s, so you are looking at a good value for the sport model. Well guys, we've enjoyed watching this in-depth look at the 2020 Subaru Forester Sport. Please hit those like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.